Hello, this is Scry Mind bringing you another Warcraft 3 audio commentary. This game is going to be, actually I'm going to do two games on this audio to show a sort of similar idea, but they're both going to be 1v1 games, and Jake is going to be playing in both of them. In this first game, it's going to be Twisted Meadows. Jake is the blue undead player in the top left spawn, and his opponent is the orange human at the top right spawn. Now these games are going to be showing sort of interesting hero choices and strategies, and as usual there will be some troll chat, so stay tuned for the amusement there. So if we look at Jake's base, he is doing what could be a fiend build. Again, there's a lot of possibilities of what you can do. You don't automatically have to get fiends just because you have a graveyard. Again, a lot of things can utilize the graveyard, say Crypt Lord, fast tech build. Ted fiends, you can go fiends, but you can still tech fast if you do certain builds like Ted fiends. Or a tower push. You might need a sacrificial skull for that and everything, or expanding. But again, I wouldn't exactly recommend tower rushing a human player. Though again, in certain situations it can work. It's just kind of risky since they can militia. And if we look at the human, he looks like he's sort of doing some standard stuff, getting a barracks and everything. But you'll notice he has foregone the altar hero, which sort of suggests he might be going for a tavern hero. A number of tavern heroes are pretty strong against undead. Though on certain maps, the Archmage has sort of an advantage here, in that he can creep this lab pretty quick. You can fast build the altar and the barracks and do this lab very quickly, so it's very hard to harass, depending on the spawns especially. But again, he is going to be going for a tavern hero, so probably not going to be doing that lab quite as quick. And if you look at Jake, he is getting a Dreadlord, getting some more ghouls, so that sort of suggests not going for fiends, especially with a Dreadlord. Though again, Dreadlord can be played with fiends. Just not going to be doing anything with vampiric aura. Not going to be helping the fiends, but you don't have to get vampiric aura, which a lot of people seem to think that it's just completely ridiculous to go Dreadlord fiends. Again, it's arguable. Death Knight certainly good with fiends. That's kind of a standard strategy. I'm not going to say that Dreadlord is better with fiends than a Death Knight, but again, it's just different. There are things you can take advantage of with a Dreadlord that you can't do with a Death Knight, and vice versa, clearly so. But we can see, if we look over here, Orange has gotten a Panda, which is a fairly effective hero against undead, especially if you can level it up. He can start to pretty much counter undead tier 1 and tier 2 units in mass with his AoE spells. Fiends, ghouls, statues, casters to some degree, and gargs, they all pretty much get rolled over with the Panda. And then he can also, if he gets to your acolytes and towers and stuff, he can do good damage to those as well. It hits buildings, it hits air, and it's very strong. And especially if you pair it with Drunken Haze, you get the bonus damage, slow them down. You get a spell that's even stronger than Curse in terms of damage reduction in Drunken Haze also. So it's just those combination together are very, very powerful. Again, the main ways to counter it, either spreading your units in battle, heal scrolls, statues a little bit, maybe burrow until the Drunken Haze wears off in certain situations. But again, if we look over here, Jake is going to be creeping this expansion, fast expanding, kind of sort of common to do with a Dreadlord, since the Dreadlord can sleep, the Bloodlust Ogre Magi, and do all sorts of stuff, so he's pretty good at creeping gold mines oftentimes. But again, usually if you're expanding with undead, you're going to want to get at least a Nerubian tower there to fend off any harass, because the acolytes are exposed. You can't TP there unless you've got a Necropolis. I mean, it's just it does build quickly, and the gold mine alone, is a little bit cheaper than the other races' town halls. So in that respect, it's not that bad, but it is fairly easy to harass, especially if you don't have a tower or necropolis. Even 2 footmen can run over there and just just throw everything off. Got some silly chat going on. Jake, I guess, maybe trying to manipulate his opponent into believing he just went the standard Death Knight strategy. Again, Orange is not doing himself any favors, as he is not scouting at all. He doesn't know anything about what his opponent's doing. Again, that's kind of a dangerous way to play. You better be pretty good to just try to pull off not scouting, because the longer you do that, again, things like this expansion, again, that is game changing. An undead with an expansion against a human without an expansion, again, that you didn't even harass, is, that's just gonna roll quick. It's gonna roll over, and it's gonna quickly determine who wins this game, honestly. But again, this was kind of sloppy play. Again, I think he was going for level 3. I think he just needed 1 kill. He was sort of slow to run back, and he's going to lose 2 footmen actually, and he almost loses 0. But so that could have been devastating with if blue would have showed up at the wrong time. But again, I think he could have went here, maybe killed one of these gnolls instead, or went over here, or even went to this green camp down here. A little bit out of the way maybe, but again, a little less risky. Definitely wouldn't have been losing 2 footmen like that. And he wasted mana trying to cast Drunken Haze for some reason, even though he only hit 2 of the trolls, and one of them was the priest, which is just healing, so they're not really reducing any damage with that. So sort of a bad choice. He would have liked to have that mana, because here he's going to encounter blue, and yeah, he's got the advantage in terms of army right now, but that expansion, not scouting it, is going to really mess him up. Now blue realizes he needs to get out, because he can't fight these footmen. The footmen straight up against tier 1 ghouls are going to beat him. They have about 80 more hit points and 2 more armor. So as you see, that breath of fire just killed it. He actually did a good sleep, and he hit sleep right after he did Drunken Haze, so he almost was able to get back. But this Panda has boots of speed, and he still was able to get the fire off on him. I think he force attacked his hero with a footman, which is one thing you can do against sleep, to wake the hero up. Even at level 1, it still lasts a little bit of time, as he was able to get the surround. On open ground, the undead couldn't fight the human right there, but in this base with the towers, the blight regeneration, the graveyard with the corpses, and these extra wood ghouls that he could bring up, as you can see, he was able to quickly just force the human out. Again, I think he killed 1 ghoul, so definitely not worth it. Again, he might have been better to push this if he knew about it. Again, he wouldn't have had the graveyard. The wood ghouls would have been over there. Maybe would have had the TP to actually fight him there. So, poor choice of attack there. And as you can see, that was his only. That's really the only scouting he's done so far, is going in there. Though even still, he should have maybe been able to look and see, since the tech wasn't finished, since he was a Dreadlord, and since he had this pendant of mana, he definitely should have been thinking that a fast expansion was definitely one thing that blue could have done. So he might be behind. He should have been paying attention that way. Much less scouting, way more than he does this game. Again, he's creeping this lab. Even right here, he could just spend 50 gold to figure it out. Even if if he was paying close enough attention, he wouldn't even need to spend the 50 gold. But it's neither here nor there. He didn't. So now he's got 2 sanctums. He's going for priests. Whereas Jake is going to do some Zeppelin harass. Personally, not exactly sure why he comes to this shop and gets this invisibility potion. Maybe it's another item also. Oh, he sold the okay, he got a healing scroll, he sold the ring of protection, and he got this staff of teleportation. So that is the reasoning behind not just going in the Zeppelin. And again, it's pretty good to utilize healing scrolls against a panda. or just in general. Healing scrolls are often pretty good, and it denies the opponent the access to them if you know he's buying the only shop that's been crept. He bought that one, so again, this is really good timing push. He's gonna be able to get some kills with these skeletons and ghouls. I think he should have been using sleep on these priests maybe, or on some of these militia, but for some reason he decides to save the mana. But he still does a pretty good amount of damage. Since his opponent was far from his base, he decided to just let it happen, try to militia, and finish creeping what he did. And yeah, so Jake, not only did he get some kills, not only is he getting his opponent to kind of camp his main, slowing him down, he scouted his production, which is going to be a barracks and 2 sanctums. He does have a blacksmith, so he can make riflemen, but as you can see, he's saying he found a hole in his opponent's strategy here. And if you take a look at his army, you might realize that hole is there's not a whole lot of anti-air units in his army, and especially not a whole lot of anti-destroyer capabilities. He's not going to get anything to beat destroyers out of the sanctums, and he's only got the 1 barracks, so he can maybe start, he probably should start producing some riflemen. But he's going to sort of make the incorrect assumption that his opponent is going for frost worms, which again also are going to be very powerful against footmen and priests and such, but not quite as strong as Dragonhawk Riders, which is actually what Orange is going to try to get in this game. Now, I wouldn't exactly recommend alerting your opponent to holes in their strategies at any point in the game. Again, you might try to manipulate them into thinking you're going to go something, but if you're going to try to surprise them with something, often it's not a good idea to sort of say, hey, you don't have a lot of anti-air, or hey, what do you have to counter destroyers, especially if you're going destroyers, which if we look over at Jake's base, he's got 3 slaughterhouses and a ton of gold, 2,200 plus gold there, so he's going to be able to quickly just mass up through the upkeeps and get this giant army of destroyers. And Orange still hasn't really made any kind of attempt to counter destroyers. He's putting up these scattered guard towers, which are okay in mass against destroyers, and are not the best though. They actually take extra damage from destroyers, so it doesn't really counter a mass of destroyers unless you have just a stupid number of them, of guard towers. Like if you have an expansion and you can mass like 15 towers at every base or something like that, only then are you really going to be safe against these massive destroyers. That's going to counter, that can maybe ward off a few destroyers, but they're spread out, so even with 2 or 3 destroyers, he can pretty much pop these towers off pretty easily. Notice that blue is encountered Orange again, and he's running. He doesn't have any purpose to fight this battle. He's got the advantage in terms of the expansion. Right now, Orange's army could beat him in a straight up fight pretty easily. So he's just going to run. It's distracting him. His opponent's not scouting his base, not scouting his expansion, and yeah, he's just going to try to minimize the unit losses here. And at some point, he's going to realize, hey, I've got the Zeppelin now. Why don't I just jump in there and quote unquote, he's going to say he had to catch his flight, which is pretty amusing comment there. So now he's doing some scouting with a shade, and he sees that his opponent probably doesn't have an expansion, at least at this gold mine that he's crept. I don't remember if he saw the he did see the aviary, I believe. So yeah, he's going to be getting Dragonhawk Riders, which again, he's way too far behind for that to work in terms of economy and production. He's got 1 Griffin Aviary against 3 slaughterhouses, so he's just not going to have enough in time to counter them. And again, I don't know if he had the resources to really, get another aviary and mass out of 2 aviaries. He, I think even though he's queued up 3, he could have gotten these. If he had another aviary, he maybe would have done a little better. But again, he doesn't have quite the resources to really keep up. And even with 2 aviaries, that's against 3 slaughterhouses. So, and you notice he's getting the 3rd attack upgrade. So these destroyers, the Dragonhawks have 1 attack upgrade, and the destroyers are going to have 3 attack upgrades. And notice he's doing the absorb mana. He's going to morph these one at a time, and he's going to absorb mana, so he will have mana to use Orb of Annihilation, which I think gives like 20 extra damage per hit, which is crazy. Even with the 3 attack upgrades, that's like almost double the damage. So, and it does splash damage, so it's just gonna crush clumped up units. And it's definitely he's just gonna overwhelm it with numbers again. This replay was sort of to highlight out of the box strategy, just hard countering your opponent based on what they have and what they can build. Sanctums, 2 sanctums, pretty strong mid game against undead, but late game, if he's able to, if you let your opponent get these destroyers, you're gonna have to find some other kind of counter, which is gonna mean another production building, be it a workshop or aviaries or whatnot. So. And again, definitely don't want your opponent having this expansion and you not having expansion, especially if they're undead. So again, as you look at the army sizes, orange is at 65 food, and blue is all the way at 99 food. So, and 90% of his the human's army, or maybe not 90, but most of his army is not going to be helping him against these destroyers. It's just footmen and priests. So. As you can see, he's just going to run in here and just completely melt these Dragonhawks. I don't even know if he killed any of them. Oh, he killed 1 destroyer before losing all of his Dragonhawks. And then he TP'd in a last-ditch desperation attempt. Kind of like 300 there against the Persian army. Maybe the other humans of BattleNet will mass up and try to oppose the Persian king Jake here with his Infernal and everything else. But this game is pretty much over. Yeah, so you don't always have to do sort of a cookie cutter build. Orange's army was actually pretty well set up to fight against a fiend build. With defend and priests and 2 AoE heroes. I think he would have done very well against just standard fiends. Death Knight, Lich, etc. So this next game is going to be Jake is the pink player, Royd Pump 69, and he is a human in this game, and it's on Turtle Rock, and his opponent will be Elf, the teal elf at the bottom left spawn. Jake at the top left spawn. So yeah, so. I guess it's just like 10 o'clock versus 5 o'clock. Might be better, more accurate, based on these odd spawn locations. But on this map. But anyway, yeah. So that game and this game kind of gonna illustrate an idea of trying to actually just win on a hard counter, even though also it did depend on Jake having just also outmassing his opponent in terms of food, because he was able to get the expansion up. But again, you don't always have to do cookie cutter heroes and units. But if you're gonna try to hard counter your opponent with some kind of 1 unit all in strategy, it requires you to really do a lot of scouting and to know what your opponent is up to in most points, because if you're 3 slaughterhouses, there's not too many options. You've got A-bombs, you've got meat wagons, and you've got destroyers. Now, meat wagons, not exactly going to be able to fight any kind of pitched battle in the open with meat wagons, pretty much. So, that's out. You know, mass A bombs are, you know, they've been good against footmen and priests somewhat, but you know, with Drunken Haze and Breath of Fire leveled up and Blizzard, even A bombs would have been questionable. And then, you know, you could have just, you know, added some sorceresses, and it would have just been pretty tough, you know, until you got destroyers. But and then you've got destroyers, which in that case, in the last game, clearly were the best option. He was able to just roll his opponent right in his main base, even ignoring towers, and you know, he didn't even have to really do too much micro, you know, just target the anti-air units, and then that was over in about 5 seconds, honestly. So yeah, you know, that's, you know, you don't always have to have 200 plus APM. You know, go Blade Master, Death Knight, Archmage, Demon Hunter. You know, not always required to do that. While, you know, they may be, those standard heroes may be slightly stronger than some other heroes. You know, that, you know, each hero has its own advantages and disadvantages, and you can play around with that. You know, the Dreadlord has things that he can do that the Death Knight just can't do. You know, sleeps around. You know, if you get level 2 carrying, certain worker units, namely the Wisps, get one-shotted by Carrion Swarm at level 2. So, you know, if you can get level 2 Carrion Swarm, you can run in and just wipe, depending on where their Wisps are. If they've got them lined up, then you can just, and you can get there, you can wipe them with one Carrion Swarm and really do a ton of damage with not very much risk or cost. So now if we look here, Jake has gone for a Paladin, his opponent is gone for a Keeper. He's throwing up a second Ancient of War. He's already got a Hunter's Hall, and he's making archers. Now Jake he went Divine Shield first, which is kind of silly. Again, I'll point out some of these opponents are not exactly the top tier Warcraft 3 pros, top tier players from the pro circuit or anything like that. But so Jake is going to be able to get away with doing some sort of silly stuff. For some reason, his opponent's asking about shoe size. Not exactly sure. Jake already told him that he was John Cena, I believe. So I don't exactly know. I think Jake is going to say he's 6 in youth. Shoe. But anyway. Yeah, so Jake, while his little Divine Shield harass, while it admittedly looked really dumb when he was doing it, and again it was very dumb, honestly, in terms of actually doing damage, but it served the purpose actually of scouting, and he saw that his opponent was a Keeper, he had archers, but he did have a Hunter's Hall and was upgrading, and he was getting 2 Ancients of War, so you can know to expect probably a massive tier 1 units. And yeah, so he knew, you know, he sort of knows what he's up against, and he's got 2 barracks here. He's massing footmen. Footmen pretty good on this map, especially with defend to creep, though he has not quite finished defend when he starts his camp. Honestly, could have probably just waited a few seconds and then you know, been a little bit better off, but he doesn't really lose anything, but he does take a lot of damage on a couple of footmen. But so yeah, footmen pretty good to creep on this map. Having a ton of them like he does before he starts creeping this camp, definitely good. Helps him kill it quickly and take less damage. And you can see he's going to expand here since he's got these militia. His opponent just kind of sitting in his main, not exactly doing very much. He corrupt that green, and yeah, so now Jake actually got the Lion Horn of Stormwind item, which is Devotion Aura, which it doesn't stack with Devotion Aura, so I believe he sells this item at some point. But at any rate, we just have some creeping going on. I'll go ahead and speed it up to 2 times speed. And yeah, so again, Jake is right now he's got footmen, but footmen alone are going to be poor against huntresses, especially with Thorn's Aura, which I think Teal gets. Yep. And so So yeah, he's not going to be able to just mass footmen, most likely, and overwhelm his opponent that way. Though he is getting, he is going to be getting another barracks, and he's got a blacksmith. Rifles are by far more effective against huntresses than footmen are, especially without some sort of slow bolt or something like that. Mass rifles are going to beat mass huntresses most often, and especially without the range upgrade. And usually, depending on what their hero is and everything else, timing, etc., micro, but just in general, mass rifles better than mass huntresses. And so that is what Jake is going to be switching to. He's going to decide to just mass up to 100 food of riflemen, and he's going to pretty much lose these footmen. Kind of bad news for Jake. He missed the Ogre Magi kill, but he did get the item and the ward, which puts Teal at almost level 3. It would have been good to deny him that, because now he's going to have level 3, and he probably gets him. Oh my goodness, he got Thorns or level 2, which is, I guess against mass units, maybe against mass footmen, but actually it turns out Jake doesn't have any footmen left except for these two. But so Thorns are completely useless. I don't know if Jake specifically, I definitely don't think he went rifles to counter the Thorns aura. I think he went rifles to counter the huntresses, and again, rifles are okay against archers. They counter archers fine. It's just not quite as, they don't quite do as much damage to archers as they do to huntresses based on the armor types, but in the Luna's Grace. But again, this second keeper spell or skill, Thorns Aura, actually the one he invested his he made his primary skill so far, is completely worthless against rifles. So Jake kind of just stumbled into accidentally almost countering half of Teal's hero skills. So that was pretty good. Not that he really needed to counter Thorns Aura per se, but it's a little things sometimes. He's got this expansion. Teal definitely needed to scout it. He should have thrown some hunts over here to harass it. Then there's no towers and everything. He doesn't have bolt. He doesn't have water elementals. So huntresses could have definitely done a lot of work harassing that. But again, Teal not exactly the best player. Notice he is over 2,000 gold. He's got these 2 Ancients of War doing nothing at the moment. I don't know why. He's at 30 food only. His tech, he just started his tech after he pushed Pink, I believe, so his tech is way behind. Actually, even though Pink expanded fast, he's got 3 barracks, and he fast expanded. He's still teched way faster than Teal, which is just crazy. Yeah, he's going to be able to get more upgrades on these riflemen, which are already at 1-1 upgrades, and he's going to keep upgrading. He's getting the range upgrade. He's throwing up another barracks, and his strategy is just going to be mass rifles. And while in certain situations mass rifles are not going to be that great against Elf, tier 1 mass rifles are pretty strong. At tier 2, they do okay against Dryads and Dots. Now the only thing that really counters them very well is Bears, maybe Mountain Giants, or maybe Mass Chimera. Again, there's things you can do with Chimera to kind of kite the rifleman, harass the main base, force him to camp his main, or start picking off workers, start picking off buildings with Corrosive Breath, picking off towers with the magic damage if you don't have Corrosive Breath. So yeah, the counters to rifles are really in tier 3. You can get away with maybe certain heroes like a Panda, and then going for archers, dots, dryads, maybe but again, dryads and dots take a lot of damage from rifles. They have less range than rifles, and so just in general, it's going to be hard to fight rifles with dots and dryads. You're really going to need your hero to do a lot of work there, and the archers, you know, are kind of the sort of counter, but you know they're not exactly a counter to riflemen. So again, riflemen pretty strong against elf. The one problem with riflemen though is it takes a lot of wood and everything to start getting them, and they're 3 food. So yeah, usually it's going to be hard to mass them up, to outmass maybe a hunt user with 2 Ancients of War. And again, if you do that, your tech's going to be slow, your expanding might be slow, etc. But if you have an expansion, you're definitely going to be able to pull a bunch of rifles off pretty well against the elf. If we look at the army size here, pink is at 70 food, teal is at 42. So while he's going to be able to kill these towers, maybe he's got these ballista. Again, this is just a poor decision. I mean, he's got about not quite half, but you know, he walked in there with like a 30 food disadvantage. Plus, he can militia if he really needed to. But and he had the tower sitting right there, and the shop. So there was no way he was really going to do anything right there with that army of any significance. He killed 2 towers. Whoop-de-doo. He lost like, he probably lost like 12 food worth of units or something. So, and yeah, he did nothing to this expansion. So trading units, even if he traded evenly right there, he still comes out behind because he doesn't have an expansion. So pink can quickly just rebuild his army, and actually losing units potentially helps pink if it puts him under upkeep. So you know, upkeep is kind of a weird mechanic. It can hurt certain strategies, it can help, you know, certain strategies. You know, sometimes you want to, if you got the expansion advantage, you know, perhaps you want to trade units, you know, in terms of upkeep, in terms of just keeping your opponent's army small, and yeah, eventually you'll just win the war of attrition. Now what upkeep does do is kind of keeps the games more dynamic. Like if you get behind, like teal is, you know, but pink's in high upkeep, he's only getting 50%, or I think he's only getting 40% of the normal gold harvesting. So yeah, that's that is with high upkeep. So that is a very, very high penalty. So while he's got this expansion, he's actually harvesting gold. As long as he's in no upkeep, teal is actually harvesting gold faster than pink, because you know he's got twice as many gold mines and workers going to it, but he's only getting 40% of the income. So you know he gets 8 gold coming in for every run of his 2 workers, compared to 10 of his opponents. So it's kind of, it helps in games not just snowball out of control once you get behind, or it can in certain situations do that. Now, you know, again, it adds a strategic element. You know, you want to avoid upkeep as long as you can, maybe banking gold in certain circumstances, like especially free-for-all games. But again, in any game type, you know, banking gold can have, you know, before you break upkeep, you know, it can help you tremendously. It could actually make the difference between winning and losing, playing carefully around upkeep. You know, every little bit counts. A game of inches here, but this game isn't nearly that close, because pink is rolling around with a mass upgraded rifleman. Again, having 1 unit allows you to take advantage of upgrades. You know, these upgrades are affecting his entire army. So yeah, that's a very efficient use of the upgrades. And again, the armor scroll, you know, 150 gold, but it's like another armor upgrade, you know, for a limited time. So he knows he's got 10.5 armor here with this armor scroll. Now again, I would like to point out here before this battle goes down that you know, level 3 devotional, while you know it's okay, you know, it does decent amount. You know, it's giving plus 4.5 armor on his units, but if you look, they already have base 4 armor. So basically what it does is it's giving these, if we look at the numbers here, 4.5 is just a little bit more than 4, and so it's going to be a little bit more than half of the percent reduction coming from Devotion Aura. So you see he's at 34% reduction, so half of that is 17, so it's going to be a little bit more than 17% damage reduction from this this level 3 Devotion Aura, which, you know, it's decent, but if you compare it to other damage reduction hero skills, Pit Lord's Howl of Terror, for example, you know, in certain contexts, it just does way less. Like, you know, while this aura doesn't, it ignores any, you know, they can have a whole army of magic immune units. It doesn't matter. You're still going to be getting the damage reduction from the aura. You know, you can run the towers. You know, in that situation, you know, Howl of Terror isn't going to do anything to the towers, but whereas Devotion Aura would still get the damage reduction on towers. But on the other hand, against anything that isn't magic immune that you can and do hit with Howl of Terror, level 3 Howl of Terror is 50% damage reduction. So you know, 50% compared to 17, 18%. I mean, that is a huge difference in terms of just the pure damage reduction, as long as they don't have magic immune units. Now clearly if they have Mass Dryads, Devotional Aura is going to be better than Howl of Terror, since Howl of Terror doesn't hit them. Mass Breakers, same deal. You know, Howl of Terror doesn't hit them. And I guess you can dispel Howl of Terror probably, but again, you know, still it's a huge, you know, everything being equal, you know, if you're hitting the same, I mean, you're not hitting units with Devotional Aura. I mean, you have your own units covered by it, but as long as it's sort of affecting the same, you're actually getting units with Howl of Terror. You know, you're just getting way more damage reduction. Like, you know, if you have Devotion Aura compared to Howl of Terror against Frostworms, I mean, it's night and day. I mean, 17% damage reduction is one thing, but halving the damage reduction of a Frostworm is way more useful. So again, you know, like I say, you don't want to I don't want to pigeonhole you into picking certain heroes, but I just think in a straight up comparison, you know, Devotion Aura kind of lacks compared to some of the other, like Drunken Haze. You know, Drunken Haze has a little bit less area of effect than Howl of Terror, but you know, it has other advantages. But you know, those spells are doing a larger percent of damage reduction in most circumstances. So you know, you might be better off, you know, rolling with a Pit Lord. You know, though the Pit Lord doesn't have Divine Shield, doesn't have Holy Light, etc. But you know, that's just one thing you might keep in mind with hero choice and everything. So you know, I hope these replays were sort of informative and entertaining, and I just wanted to highlight the idea that you want to hard counter your opponent as much as you can in games. You know, it's a strategy game. You know, you don't always have to win on economy. You don't, even though in these games Jake actually, you know, did have the economy advantage. You don't always have to just win on a war of attrition. You know, it's way easier to make the counter units and win that way than try to bash your head against a wall, essentially, with, you know, an army of fiends against an army of, you know, Panda, Footman, Priests. You know, he probably has Defend. He's clearly going to have AoE from the Panda. You know, he actually had Blizzard from the Archmage, so, you know, not exactly the best choice for, you know, fiends in that situation. So yeah, just something to keep in mind. And again, doing that effectively is gonna come down to scouting. So until next time, Scrymind out.